So how many of you are going to go on an Easter egg hunt? Raise your hand. You're going to participate in one somewhere. Okay. Well, we're gonna do that once we dye the eggs. And then, but Rosalie's 20, and I guess there's a statute of limitations on eggs, so she's not going to be doing it. That Rosalie will not be doing it this year, but Jason will be doing it this year. And what is it about the egg? You know, when I was a kid, it was my favorite thing in my grandpa's ranch. He had a ranch with cattle ranch, but you know, the cattle were okay. They're just kind of big, and sometimes they put me up on the back of one of them, and I like that. But what I really liked to do was in the morning take a basket with my grandma and go into the hen house, and these magical eggs would have just appeared, and I would gather them and put them in my basket, and it was so wonderful. And so I would go with the dog, and earlier, you know, maybe the afternoon before, and I'd say, "Hey, Johnny, let's go chase chickens." And we get in trouble because you don't want to chase chickens because it makes them tough, right? So, but I would go in there and I would find the eggs, and I was so proud. I was like, no, wait till the next morning. But it was this new life. It was this new life, and it was so exciting to me. And so Easter egg hunts are fun. But I have an Easter egg hunt this morning. So where'd I hide my egg? Where'd I hide my egg? Is it over here? I think it's in the bell of the alto sax. No. Where do you think it could be? It's not in the soprano sax. It's in her purse. Oh, there it is. There it is. Oh, what about this egg? You know, it's the perfect shape. It's not quite round. It's egg-shaped. You know, the thing about an egg is that it gives birth, right? But it doesn't look like anything's going on. A fertilized egg is just like this. This is hard-boiled, but you couldn't tell the difference. And at what point, which peck opens the egg?
The last one.
The last one. Now, you've got things going on in your life that you've been praying about. There's aspirations and yearnings of your soul. You want something more in your life, more of a sense of peace and well-being, and certainly answered prayers. And you look at it, and nothing's happening. It's just the same old, but none of this effort is wasted, because furiously, and you don't see it, within the shell of the appearance of your prayer, there's a pecking going on. And that little bird in the egg is pecking and pecking and pecking and pecking, and nothing happens. Nothing shows up until the very last peck. And you look at the appearance of things, you say it's all for nothing. But that's what faith is. There's pecking going on in your soul. There is a desire in your heart. There's something placed in the center of your soul at the beginning of time. This is what we call the Christ in you. It's what James Dillett Freeman was writing about when he said the Christ is the divinity that's in all of us, that God-like, eternal, real, selfless self of us that God made us to be. As Jesus was the Son of God in incarnation, we are daughters and sons of God in aspiration, meaning in potential, moving from a place to a place, from not a bad place, but it's lesser. Because we're evolving, always moving forward to a what place? To the place of the birth of that new something. That new something, and Jesus, to mix his metaphors, and he did frequently, he said this was the new wine that came in, that the new spirit, the new wine that came in and needed new wineskins, remember that? And if you don't change your wineskins, that it's not going to be able to handle it. Well, you know, what is wine? He called it spirit. You know, the same word was used in Latin, spiritus, for what? For breath. It was the word for breath. It was a word for wind, for a breeze. It was a word for a ghost, a discarnate entity. It was a word for the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God. And it was also the word for alcohol. It was a word for all those things, same word. Isn't that an incredible word? And Jesus used that, and he talked about, that's why that, you know, in the communion idea, the Last Supper, it's like the wine symbolizes his blood, symbolizes the life, symbolizes the energy. But he says in order to have that new wine, you've got to get new wineskins. And this wasn't part of the Easter story, but it just feels like it's such an important part because you've got to let go into a possibility that requires you to let go of your pictures of what you think are what is supposed to happen. You think, just as they thought 2,000 years ago, they knew what resurrection or the Messiah or all those things, they had an idea in their mind. And it was none of those things. Nothing happened at all like any of them thought. In fact, the disciples were so flat-footed that 7 of them left and went up to Galilee to go fishing because they'd given up. Because the answer is not what you think. It's always something more. It's always something different. It's always something greater, and it's always something unfamiliar. You got to go into the space of I don't know. Remember, Catherine Ponder talked about the 4 phases of every overcoming, of every chemicalization, of every triumph in life, and the 4 phases are Palm Sunday is my idea of saturation, and then commotion, which is Holy Thursday and Palm Sunday with the arrest and the trial and crucifixion. That's commotion. And then quiet. The 3rd is quiet. And that's in the tomb, in the quiet. And the 4th is fulfillment, and that's Easter. And you got to go through all 4. But the quiet phase requires you to say, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Remember in the chrysalis, the caterpillar turning into a butterfly. That's the phase of all those cells. They're just undifferentiated goo. There's no differentiation. Everything is just, I don't know. And yet there's something in you that knows how to become a butterfly. There's something in this little egg that knows how to peck its way out. There's something in the baby that knows how to go through the birth canal. You know, the birth canal is a very exciting place. But before that is the quiet. But then there comes forth this great expression. This great expression. But you've got to let go of what's familiar. You've got to let go of what you thought you wanted. You had an idea of what you wanted, didn't you? But there's something more than that. You know, most of the unhappiness in life is our idea of things isn't fulfilled. But let go. Let go of that. And know that a higher idea is being fulfilled. But you got to let go into it. Back about, 35 years ago, 30-something years ago, I lived in Hawaii, and I lived in near a place that is no longer accessible to people. But at the time, you could actually go there. It's called the Toilet Bowl. How many people know about the Toilet Bowl? It's located between Diamond Head and Waikiki, right next to Hanauma Bay. But now it's all cordoned off because I guess people got hurt there. I was almost one of them. And it says, think of a lava field with a natural hole in it and a natural tube that comes out from it to the sea. And the lava cliffs come in like this so that when the waves come in, they build pressure, getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and the waves get higher and higher until they shoot through the tube and out the other end like a geyser. So the fun thing to do, until they made it illegal, is to jump into what they called the toilet bowl, which is this opening in the lava. And it's about, 10 feet, 6 feet, something like that, but you could jump into it. And then you wait for the big wave. And when the big wave comes, it comes in and it squeezes the water and then shoots through the tube, and then you pop up like a cork. And that's fun. That's lots of fun. You don't believe it. That's why you live in Illinois. But you're safe here, but it's still fun, except you can't do it anymore. But what happened to me, I had so much fun doing it, and then I got bored with it, which we do with things that are fun sometimes. And so I decided I was going to climb on the outside and climb around on the lava rocks. And I was climbing around, and I saw a big wave coming in, and I didn't have enough time to climb back. So I figured I better hold on real tight. So I grabbed a couple of handholds, and out of one of the handholds, just as I grabbed it, came the teeth and the mouth of an eel. The eel came right at me, and I went, ah! And then the wave hit at that moment. So what happened to me? I was thrown into the water. But I didn't have time to think. All this happened in 2 seconds. And the thing that happened is that I was forced into the lava tube and forced all the way through, and I popped up like a cork. And I was unhurt because I didn't fight it. Don't fight the wave. Don't fight the wave. Don't fight the birth. There's so many metaphors here. You're going to go home reeling thinking about metaphors. But the truth is, this is what goes on. Easter doesn't just happen once. Easter is an ongoing process. It happens over and over and over again every time you let go of something that's lesser. Oh, what I thought the good was. What I thought the answer was. And you open up to something new. And it's completely redefined. Jesus said, that new wine, it comes in, you can't control it. It doesn't fit anybody's pictures. Spiritus, what is that? When I was in college, I experienced new wine. I wasn't 21 yet. So I read in the Whole Earth catalog. I get in trouble telling the story. I read in the Whole Earth catalog about something called balloon wine. And they told how to make it. It's a very short recipe. So I went down to A&W Root Beer. In those days, you could get a gallon glass jug and have it refilled at A&W. So I bought my gallon glass jug, but I didn't fill it with root beer. I went down and got some Welch's grape juice in concentrate, added water, mixed it up, put some sugar in it, the amount they said, and some Fleischmann's dry yeast that you use to make, balloon wine, to make bread out of. And then I put a balloon on the top of it, over the top of it, and it's a 21-day process. Around the 14th day, the balloon starts filling up with the gases. And it gets bigger and bigger. It's amazing how big it gets. And about the 21st day, it kind of quiets down. And then you drink it. New wine. Frothy. Yeasty. Doesn't take any prisoners at all. Uncontrollable. And you are too. But I'm telling you this story because don't blame me, blame Jesus. That's his, and we're not don't get hung up on it, but the idea is that it's energy that you cannot control, just like I couldn't control the wave. You cannot control, the egg knows how to be hatched. The egg in you knows how to be hatched. The baby knows how to be born. A baby's just fine in the quiet of that cave-like experience, very much like Jesus's. Sensory deprivation, quiet, it's beautiful. And then it's time to be born, it's time to come out. There's a part of you that knows how to do it. But before that, there's that time of I don't know. And the resurrection happened on Saturday, not on Sunday, really, because that's where the energy was taking place. What Charles Fillmore, Unity's co-founder, calls Jesus transformed his body into his fourth dimensional body. Well, it's a lot of words for creating a new wineskin for the energy. And remember, in the story, he says to Mary Magdalene, don't touch me. Don't touch me. I have not yet ascended to my Father. What's he saying? My cake isn't baked yet. It might fall. There's an energy in me that can't be messed with right now. And so there's an energy in you. It's the new wine. And it's a process. Life is a process. Resurrection is in you, but it requires a process. You have to go through it. There's no shortcuts. You have to go through the full experience of it. And you've got to stop judging it and saying, it's just an egg. It just looks the same. There's always something new that's going to come forth. But let's talk about these 4 stages that Catherine Ponder talks about. Now, she didn't apply it to the Holy Week experience, but it fits for me. So I'm taking the idea of it. Saturation, commotion, quiet, and fulfillment. Saturation is that's that Palm Sunday. It's when your heart is pierced. It's when that energy comes in. It's when you set an intention with your whole heart. A desire, perhaps you think it's for something, but it's for more than something. It's for the who that you are. Because every prayer you pray is a prayer for more of the who that you are. Every prayer is a prayer of a desire of your heart. And that pierced heart is that saturation of energy. It comes in like Palm Sunday. We talked about it last week. That energy builds and hosannas and children crying out. And Jesus said, if I tell them to be quiet, the stones will start shouting it. It's that energy that you've got to initiate this process with. You've got to energize yourself, get off your complacency, get off your safeness, your safety zone, and be willing to move into that which is not necessarily so secure, but which is the fulfillment of the being that you are. And that's what's called faith, trusting it's all going to work out. So that's the saturation. There's commotion. Commotion is what happened when Jesus was betrayed and arrested and had his trial. And then he was crucified. All the commotion that takes place, because once you establish that desire of your heart, everything unlike it comes up. Love brings up whatever's in its way. So there's that commotion that takes place. And sometimes it means not having things exactly the way you want them to, but maybe you have some feelings. Maybe you have some feelings that come up and you judge yourself and you say, how can I have these feelings if I'm a growing, evolving soul? But those feelings come up because they're coming up to be released, just like the whole Good Friday experience was coming up to be released. You accept the process. You allow yourself to go through the commotion. Then comes the quiet, and that's what we don't talk about because we don't hold a service on Saturday. Saturday's where all that took place. By the way, do you know about 3 days in the tomb? It took me years. I was an adult before I figured out that from Good Friday afternoon to Easter morning isn't 3 days. And then I read that in the Jewish calendar, there were 3 days that they experienced, because the first day, the Good Friday, was day 1, and then day 2 was that Saturday, and day 3 was the morning of Easter. So it was less than 48 hours, but it was 3 days. For anybody who's been worrying about that, I've just figured it out for you. But there's that quiet that takes place in that process. And in our culture, we don't do that a lot. We don't get quiet a lot. But we got to do that. We got to unplug. We got to turn it off. Not make it a rigid, rigorous thing that's a burden to us, but taking that and creating a space, an opening, a tomb-like, a womb-like, an opening up in your heart. When Jesus was in that space, in the meditation we talked about this, there was no sound. There was no sight. It was all blocked. There's no wind. There was no feeling. Every sensory input was gone, and what was left? His being. His being. And he was furiously pecking away in his being, but it was quiet, because you got to get quiet for a higher answer to come forth. You got to get quiet. Sometimes, many of us, getting quiet just means saying, I don't know. I don't know. Just like the caterpillar cells in the chrysalis. It doesn't know. It's all mixed up. But it's okay, because that confusion is holy confusion. That confusion is sacred confusion, because it's going to reconfigure itself and you're going to go through what you need to go through. But you've got to trust, because there's that in you that knows how to do this. And then, after the quiet comes what? The fulfillment. Well, the fulfillment means that you've got to do something. What is it you have to do? Fulfillment? Well, you've got to accept it. You've got to accept it. Jesus didn't just stay stuck in the tomb saying, come on in, let's play cards. He came out. He came out into the sunlight. And how often have you seen people, or have you been the person who prayed and worked and everything, and then just as the thing comes forth, you go, oh, no. Not enough drama. I need more drama here. I need things to be, a little more. I remember, and I've told this story, I think, before, years ago, 25, 30 years ago, I was in a church and there was a disagreement between 2 sponsors and 1 sponsor in the Youth of Unity. I can talk about this safely now. And the 2 were kind of difficult people. They were kind of not getting along with the 3rd one, who had been in Unity for many years and was really trying to do the right thing. And he was complaining and saying, I don't know what to do. Well, we held, and no conflict. We didn't create more drama. We didn't make any kind of big uproar, but just by being healthy, the 2 people got bored and they left. There wasn't enough drama for them. But the 3rd guy, here's a guy who got everything he wanted, and what did he do? The very next week he quit. And I asked him why, and he gave me these weird answers, and I realized he missed the drama. He didn't want to receive, How many people, how many times do we desire the desire of our heart and then shrink away just as it's coming forth? Sabotaging our good. So we have to allow ourselves to move into that fulfillment phase. So it's the saturation, it's the commotion, it's the quiet, and it's the fulfillment. Of what? Of the Christ in you. What is that Christ in you? That Christ in you is that spiritual nature that is within every person. It's a universal truth of every being. It's something that if you were in Sri Lanka, they'd call it the Buddha nature. And if you were in northern India, they'd call it Atman. And if you were with some Sufi Muslims, they have a name for it that I can't pronounce. But it doesn't matter what you call it, because it's the essence of your being. It is the true presence that's within you, that is yearning to be born, that is calling forth a something in you, a sacred something. So let's move into this time of Easter fulfillment. And remember the desire of your heart, the prayer. Maybe there was a prayer that you prayed a long time ago, and you've waited for a long time, and the egg doesn't seem to be changing any. Remember that Jesus waited from when he was 12 till he was 30 to begin his ministry. He just waited. And Catherine Ponder said, the longer you wait, the greater your answer will be. And so just remember that saturation, that desire of your heart, that piercing of your heart. You are embarking upon the road of the fulfillment of your soul's dreams, your soul's deepest desires. And yes, there's a commotion that comes with that. I mean, everything that's unlike that desire of your heart has to be released. Just as Jesus had to release his physical body to take on the higher, transformed body. And so we are willing to let go of every limiting belief, everything we've held on to that doesn't serve us any longer, every sense or thought of limitation. And now we move into the quiet. I am now in the presence of pure being. In this quiet, there is all possibility. In this quiet, there is that in me which knows how to be born, knows how to grow, knows how to change, to be. And I trust in that Christ in me, that inner spiritual nature of me. And the fulfillment, I move into the fulfillment of my dreams, the fulfillment of my soul, the fulfillment of my heart. And I know that this Easter is unlike all other Easters, because I'm conscious, I'm aware, I'm awake, I'm claiming it. Maybe for the first time in my life. I am a growing, evolving, learning soul, and I give thanks. And so it is. And take a deep breath and let it out. And remember that the resurrection, more than anything else, took place not on Sunday morning, but on Saturday. Because all the activity that took place inside the tomb was what resulted, what outpictured on Sunday morning. But the quiet is where it happened. And so we move into the quiet, and we remember that in that sacred space of transformation, there were no sounds. Things were completely still. There was not the feeling of the slightest breeze. No sensations at all. The light had been dimmed and everything was very, very dark. And there was a withdrawal from all the senses. No sound, no touch, no sight. All of it still. And if we want our resurrection, the resurrection lives in us. We too must become quiet. resurrection is in me. My desires, my thoughts, my aspirations, the yearning of my heart. All has brought me to this place of quiet, to move into this receptive space, the inside of me, the quiet place where there's all possibility. And here I can silently ponder the desire of my heart for the something more, for the peace and the joy and the love and the light. To be born, yes, on Easter morning, but to be born in my life. But now I'm in the quiet. No sound, no sight, no touch. Everything quiet, receptive, ready and awaiting a divine activity that knows how to do it. Easter knows how to be born in me. The yearning of my heart for a sense of peace and purpose, a sense of giving and forgiving. In the quiet of my heart, these awaken, these qualities. And I sit in the quiet and I rest in my being. Rest in my being, and yet as quiet as it is, this is where all the action, the activity of my inner spirit takes place, gathers energy, ready to be born, to burst forth in new life, new love, new joy, new satisfaction, new fulfillment. Yes, the resurrection is in me, not out there. And I am grateful. I'm so grateful. And so it is. Amen. So, we're going to take our offering. And our offering statement is, I give in the spirit of Easter resurrection, and I receive abundantly. Together, I give in the spirit of Easter resurrection, and I receive abundantly. And silently. And again aloud together. I give in the spirit of Easter resurrection, and I receive abundantly. And so it is. Amen.